Sorry,
I hate negotiations. I took a negotiations class in law school, and
You're not a big fan?
I did okay, but like the whole, I'm like, this is
it's all
ridiculous.
positioning.
It's all,
Welcome. Please find your seats. We're going to get started as soon as it settles down. Please come in and have a seat. Please come in and sit down. Have a seat, please. There are plenty of room up front. Okay. Are you all ready?
well, I'm not really joking. I could, but no, I would no. I'm just joking. No, because it's well deserved. It's just.
Hi, everyone. We'll be getting started now. If you could please quiet down. Thank you. Welcome to the regular school board meeting for Mercer Island on Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. Calling this meeting to order, and we will have an establishment of the agenda item first. Do I have a motion to establish the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. We don't have Director D'Souza tonight. He's on an excused vacation adventure. The first item is a linkage study session with the community and taxpayers. And so I'm officially starting the linkage study session about the proposed 2018-2019 budget and operations. If anyone here would like to speak to us about the budget, this would be your opportunity to come and sit up at these tables and interact with the school board for this linkage. Do we have any members of the audience that are here for the linkage session? Okay, we appreciate the confidence of the community. And going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay. Thank you. That will then close our linkage study session with the community about our budget and operations. We'll now go back into the regular meeting and begin with public input. So I have several names here. We're going to start with Mary Ann Bond, and Veronica Golden will be on deck, and I'll try to mention the next name after each person. Before you begin, Mary Ann, I'm going to read our guidelines for public input. The meeting is a meeting of the board in public. It is not a public meeting that guarantees interaction between members of the public and members of the board. If you would like to address the board on a particular issue, please limit your remarks to not more than 3 minutes, and note that the lights on the podium will guide you to your 3-minute limit. Please appoint a spokesperson if the concern is a group concern, and if desired, provide written documentation to the board secretary. Public comments that name or otherwise identify a district student are not permitted without the permission of that student's parent or legal guardian. The board may direct the superintendent to respond at a later date to the issues expressed. Thank you. You may begin, Marianne.
Good evening. I'm Marianne Bond. I am a para-educator at Island Park. I'm with the kindergarten and the first grade. And I'd like to approach this whole thing from a business point of view. I live on Mercer Island. I have lived here since 1982. I have paid a lot of taxes. I have supported the Schools Foundation every year. I've been a volunteer, I've been on the PTA, I've been an art docent, and I've worked for the school district and gotten paid the last 5 years. So the way I see it is, I don't know, you must all live on Mercer Island, maybe, I don't know about you, Donna. I mean, okay, all I'm saying is, and some of you do, I'm really concerned because I've put in some time here, and I'm feeling like both my kids, went through kindergarten to 12th grade. They have graduated. They have fabulous teaching jobs, not on Mercer Island, in other parts of the state. And I'm just concerned, if we're going to run a good business, we've got to keep good employees. We've got to pay our employees. People, teachers, subs, everyone they're leaving. We can't even get subs. At Island Park last year, we were scraping just, who can we get in here to run the classroom? Who can we get in here to be a para? We would go so long without them, and we don't have bus drivers. We've got to start paying the teachers and the staff. And we've got to be able to keep these people. It's just a business decision. It's smart. And I know you people are smart. We've got to do it. We want to keep all these good people we have. And we want to be able to attract new and good people as well when these people leave. So please, 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 please make it happen. I know there's some money. Give it to us.
Thank you. Next up is Veronica Golden, and on deck is Joan Wold.
Hi, I'm Veronica Golden. I teach kindergarten at Northwood Elementary, and I have 2 questions and an ask. I was fortunate to be able to be on an interview team in the spring and hire a new employee at Northwood, and that employee was able to come to one of these meetings, and that employee asked me, the teacher heard everybody from the MIEA side about there's money and we need it, and then that teacher asked me, what is the other side of the bargaining saying, and what is their explanation for why they are not settling and why they are not giving money that was directed for us to us, and I don't know. So I'm giving that question to you so that I can give that answer back to this employee who I told what a great district it was and how supportive it is, and we take care of people and we put kids first, and now I'm feeling a little shamefaced because I don't feel like that anymore. It's kind of a slap in the face, like we have this money and we've all worked so hard, and what are you doing with it? That's the question. Specifically, people want to know, line by line, how much money do you have and what are you doing with it? My second question is, why is it taking so long? I've been spending tons of time on this when I could be taking care of classroom stuff and supporting other teachers and thinking about what I'm going to do in the fall. And instead, I'm making signs and going to meetings and doing a phone tree. And I would rather be focusing on the kids and the curriculum for the fall. So my ask is, please, tonight, make a decision and direct the other side of the bargain on Saturday to settle this so we can all focus on the fall and our curriculum and doing what's best for kids. Thank you.
Next up, Joan Wald, and after that is Kelsey Bozeman.
Good evening. My name's Joan Wold, and I've lived on Mercer Island for 44 years. I'm a Mercer Island High School graduate, a parent of 3. I've been a PTA president and a PTA council president, a room mom, a Golden Acorn Award recipient, a sports mom, and a current paraprofessional at West Mercer Elementary. I've seen many changes, but one thing that has not changed, and I hope it never does, is the quality of our schools, which I believe is because of the excellence of the teachers and the staff and the partnership between the schools, parents, and community. The quality of the schools is the primary reason my family moved here in 1974. When I got married, my husband and I chose to live on Mercer Island over neighboring cities because of the schools. We knew that the kids we hoped to have someday would get an amazing education. I'm certain we made the right choice because our 3 kids are well prepared and have most definitely benefited from attending Mercer Island schools. 2 are already off to college, where one has earned an undergraduate and graduate degrees with honors. Another is a senior at the University of Washington pursuing a degree in aquatic and fish sciences. And my son will start 7th grade this year at Islander Middle School. Every Mercer Island student will be prepared in ways that they will perhaps not even appreciate until they are sitting in a class at their chosen university, like 90% of their classmates who will also go on to higher learning, realizing that they themselves are well equipped to grasp the advanced learning while seeing many students from other high schools struggling. We as educators have tipped our hands a little bit because regardless of compensation, the quality of our work and the depth of our dedication does not waver because none of us chose this field for the money. We are not asking to get rich now, just asking to make a living wage without working 2 or 3 jobs to do it. I work 2 jobs, one at school and another job at a local health club, and I will tell you it is hard to finish one satisfying yet still exhausting job only to rush to the next one. Working with kids is our life's mission, but that fact does not mean we should be paid less than neighboring districts. The job is something we do because we love it and we believe it makes a difference, period. The goal is clear. We all, certificated, classified, administrator, or school board member, we work for the good of the kids. It should not be us versus you versus anyone. We should be in this together. It should not be so hard to take the money given to the district by the state for the purpose of raising salaries to, actually raise salaries. I implore you to come together to reach an equitable agreement. Like Veronica said, please, the sooner the better. During my time on PTA, we were always looking for more funds to compensate teachers and staff appropriately. We held auctions, organized metrothons, sold gift wrap, and in the end, we just started asking parents to write checks, all to help fund education. Now that the state has made $9 million available to Mercer Island School District, money that does not have to come from raising taxes or canceling other programs, this money is earmarked for salaries and should be used for that purpose. The time is now. The place is here. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelsey Bozeman to the podium, and next up is Heidi Conrad after Kelsey.
Hi. First, I want to thank the school board for listening and hopefully truly hearing the speeches being delivered today. I'm here to give insight from several different perspectives pertinent to these ongoing negotiations. You see, I wear quite a few hats. As many of you know, I'm a special education teacher at Mercer Island High School. I transplanted here from North Carolina just over 2 years ago, and imagine my surprise coming from a low-income Title I school district. I now have a manageable caseload that allows me to meaningfully work with each of my students in a way that best supports their individual needs. I value the support and the guidance that the district offers me, and I hope to be able to stay for years to come. However, I, as many teachers here do, commute. I commute from Renton. As I drive past Issaquah with their average 15% raise and through Bellevue with their 17%, I wonder why these districts value their teachers more than Mercer Island. You may be quick to say, wait a second, we do value you. And while I do believe that, it is yet to be reflected in the ongoing salary negotiations that I know of. I also took on several new roles last year, one of them being becoming the wife of a paraeducator. There went my dreams of being a housewife. While my husband works as a contracted para, he began the process of transitioning to a school district employee this year because, believe it or not, he makes even less than a school para. As we looked at the classified salaries for Mercer Island at the end of last year, prematurely, we realized it just wasn't going to be a livable income due to the cost of living in this area. We're trying to move closer to our two boys, who we have 50-50 custody with, but as they live in Linwood and I work on Mercer Island, we're struggling to find a house we can afford in the area. Right before this meeting, I decided to search Zillow for houses within a 30-minute commute to the high school that were within my pre-approved mortgage range based on my salary. There were zero. Zero. There were, however, 3 mobile homes listed as investment opportunities or fixer-uppers. So my husband now has 2 jobs and works until 9 p.m. 3 nights a week after working a full day at school. My final role in relation to this meeting is that I became a stepmother to 2 wonderful boys. They're 5 and 8 years old and bring indescribable joy to my life. Not only my stepmother, but I'm now the stepmother of a kid with an IEP. I am less than pleased with the services that he gets in his district, which shall not be named, but every time I talk to my husband about his services, I say, let's bring him to Mercer Island. He needs to come here. And it's because I truly believe in this school system that I say that. I value Mercer Island, and I value the culture that they impress upon students. I value the work ethic of the teachers and the dedication of the support staff. I value the experience and the expertise of the staff that I get to work with every day. So much of that value relies on educated, experienced, and hardworking certificated and classified staff members that are here day in and day out, and the retention of those staff members in the years to come. With that, in closing, I simply ask that you value us in return.
Thank you. Heidi Conrad to the podium, and next up after her will be Dana Levy.
My name is Heidi Conrad, and I am a resource teacher at Island Park. One of the reasons I can do what I do is because of my paras. Special education paras aren't a dime a dozen. And one of my paras has a master's in special education, and the other one you could call doctor. She is a dentist that left her profession because she had a special needs child that needed to be taken care of. And I feel bad and kind of ashamed that they get paid what they pay. They master curriculums, they do small groups, they implement behavior plans, and they do amazing things. And not just anybody can step into that role. And to think that I might lose either of them just tears at me. These are highly, highly qualified people. And please, please compensate them appropriately, because these are skilled people. And I would just hate to lose them. They're the reason that I can do what I do at Island Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana. And after Dana will be Lori Schwartzberg. Please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I feel like I'm saying words that I've said before, and I would like this to maybe be the last time that I have to bring the subject up, but I'm not so confident of that. I've lived on Mercer Island for 28 years. My 2 kids went through middle school. My son left after middle school, moved back east to live with his dad, and my daughter left after 10th grade, after what I refer to as the suicide year on Mercer Island at the high school. She left after 10th grade and went to BCC, Bellevue College, where she finished her high school and graduated with a degree to be a junior entering in at the UW. She now has a master's in organizational behavior, a master's in special needs, elementary, junior high, and high school. She taught in Seattle. She moved to Santa Barbara. She's now got a BCBA degree and is working in Santa Monica. A lot of that comes from the education base that she received on this island and from the incredible staff that exist here. My son, 32, works with a special needs student who is himself 22. And he's been with him for 3 years. He was with another special needs student who happened to have been a student of mine 5 years ago. I started out in the food service department. I went from there into the transportation department where I worked as a parapro. From there, I went on to become a school bus driver. I've now been a school bus driver for 24 years. I've worked with special needs students, gen ed students from pre-K through high school and beyond. I was assaulted nearly 4 years ago by one of my students. The consequence of that assault, serious assault with multiple serious injuries, is that I lost my sick leave. Unbelievable as that sounds. I lost my sick leave because in order to make ends meet, I got workers' compensation, which was great, but to make the salary pan out to 100%, I had to use my sick leave. If I didn't use my sick leave, I would have lost my contract, which ended up happening in 2016 when I broke my foot stepping out of my school bus onto frozen sludge, and then had to go begging for compensation from other employees to keep my sick leave alive and my contract valid. I ask you all to look at your own incomes, and as you look at your incomes, you wonder for a minute how you could survive with 2/3 of it. How would you survive without your contract being validated anymore if you had to go on to COBRA and attempted to support your family in whatever way you were able to, let alone to pay a mortgage or any other bills? There has to be a balance in life. And if we aren't getting it in one place, we have to get it from somewhere else, or we're all getting 2 and 3 other jobs to try to make ends meet. Thank you. Thank you.
Lori Schwartzberg, and after Lori will be David Baxter.
I'm walking a little gingerly because I hurt my back getting my classroom ready. My name is Lori Schwartzberg, and I am a Mercer Island resident, Mercer Island parent, and Mercer Island teacher. My understanding is that the current negotiations regarding educators' compensation is falling short of neighboring districts. As current negotiations move forward, I would like to reiterate the expectations of the Mercer Island community, businesses, residents, educators. We expect the highest quality education is provided to the children on this island, and not remaining competitive with neighboring districts impacts our professional educators on Mercer Island, which in turn impacts the future of our Mercer Island children, our community, our property values, and our school district's reputation. Research shows that teacher quality responds to salaries, as do most professions. Higher wages attract and retain better employees. Therefore, I'm guessing that our neighboring districts will get and keep our superior teachers. How many potential and current educators will we lose? I don't know. Maybe the elementary school educator who instills the lifelong love of learning, or who identifies the learning difference and provides strategic and high achievement strategies for high achievement. Or maybe the high school or middle school educator who advances critical thinking skills for career and college success. Probably a combination of these people and support staff, all of whom work together to benefit our students. Educators are loyal. Educators bond with the community. It takes a lot to pry an educator away from our school colors. I worked at Lake Washington, not so hard to get away from purple. Our school colors. The compensation, however, this may be a reason to jump. This is supply and demand. This is economics 101. I implore you, the board, communicate to the bargaining teams that we, the Mercer Island community, expect appropriate, reasonable resolution negotiated in good faith with the intent of McCleary in mind, so that we all on 8/29 can get back to what we do, educate children of Mercer Island.
Thank you. David Baxter. And after David will be Christy Kenyon.
Good evening. My name is David Baxter, and I've had the pleasure of teaching for 12 years at West Mercer. First of all, I'd like to thank you for allowing these comments this evening and for the work that you do for the schools. You spend so many hours, and yours is a job of passion and compassion, and that's not unrecognized. Much like anyone else here, you care about students, and that's why we want you to make great decisions to help us help them. I have, like I said, worked for 12 years in the district. I really love it. Like many of us, I spend a great deal of hours outside of the so-called classroom trying to perfect lessons, develop new and exciting curriculum, and just make the educational experience engaging and exciting for students. Because we all want our students to have an experience that is beyond the ordinary. We want excellence. Of course, that takes a toll. Time is probably the main issue. I myself drive between 40 and 75 minutes every day to get to work or from work. Usually a little bit less in the evening at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, thank God. And like many of us, I pass many different schools on the way here. But I do that because I want to be part of Mercer Island schools. I believe that we have a great group, a great community, and I certainly want that to continue to go. But we need to invest in our existing staff and continue to draw the highly qualified young people that are going to keep this community thriving and doing as well as it has. As you know, the most important resource in our schools are the adults, all the adults who give their hearts and their minds to this district and to the students that they love. Please, please encourage the district negotiators to come up with a fair bargain. We're not asking for the moon, just something that will keep us financially soluble and yet keep all of this wonderful group here for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christy Kenyon. And after Christy will be Kirsten Burke.
It's an honor to follow my son's third and fourth grade teacher. I can vouch for the extra time Mr. Baxter puts into his classroom. And I also think of how wonderful he is to thank you all for your service, because we do appreciate it. And so my name is Christy Kenyon. I have taught in the Personalized Learning Program, or we call it the PLP, at Mercer Island High School for 3 years. Prior to that, I taught in the PLP at Island Park for 7 years. In my role, I have heavily relied on the relationships I have built with our district's amazing classified team. I'm going to highlight a few folks who have come to my rescue or made a direct impact on our students, successfully engaging in and completing each of their school days. First of all, we start with the bus drivers. We've got a slew of them. Over the years, Bill, Arnie, Tom, Scott, Jeff, Dave, Pam, Dana, who gently and kindly transport our students to and from school and are constantly making accommodations for their safety and needs. When we have a big spill, broken equipment, vomit, blood, or even a toileting accident, the custodians at both sites, Cornelius at Island Park and Shannon and his team at Mercer Island High School, literally respond within minutes to help get our classroom back to instructional status. Our security officers at the high school, Kelly and Marcus, are invaluable in times of crisis, and I have them both on my phone. But even more importantly, they make our students feel important as they walk down the halls. Students who may feel marginalized sometimes. They are there with a high five, talking about their shoes, things that, yeah, I'm not that into, but it's really cool for kids. I cannot even recall all the times the office staff in both schools, Carol, Kristen, Barb, Barbara, Ida, Susan, Suzanne, Della, Becky, Alex, and I hope I didn't miss anyone. They're people who have come and gone. Help me fix something that may seem very menial to others, literally menial, but has a huge and immediate impact on the way our program runs. From changing student schedules to not so menial calling 911, the office staff I've worked with in all buildings, including the district office and transportation, have been incredible, resourceful, and supportive of all of our program and student needs, and they are quite unique sometimes, and I thank them for that. And finally, the paraeducators who have worked directly with our PLP students. Kara, Dawn, Lindsay, Joe, Claire, Patty, Rita, Heather, Kate, and the others who have come and gone. What can I say? They work tirelessly to carry out complicated IEPs while encouraging our students to reach the level of independence and happiness that we all wish for them by the time they exit these programs. The district's classified staff is the most talented, flexible, and student-focused group of people I have ever met. Oh, Mary Ann, too. I strongly urge you to ask the district bargaining team to give them the pay that they deserve, the raise that they've earned and are entitled to by McCleary. Bainbridge recently made it clear to their classified staff that they are worth it. They raised their pay by 18.2% and a really incredible rate of $50 an hour topping out. That's a lot, I get it, but I know we can get close. We cannot afford to lose our district classified staff to higher paying district. We absolutely cannot. They are irreplaceable. These folks make our district and our students shine brightly, and they should earn wages that compensate them for their efforts, care, and experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Burke.
Hello again, I'm Kirsten Burke and I teach 5th grade at West Mercer, and I wanted to just speak for a short time this evening, just to reiterate what a dedicated pool of people you have working for you, from the top, I shouldn't say the top, just across the board, from everyone that I work with at West Mercer and everyone I've seen at every other campus. You can hear tonight and the other times that we've come to speak to you just how dedicated everybody is to the children and to the district. And we really don't want to leave our jobs. We are loyal, and again, we feel very strongly about what we do and about giving to the children. I want to point out, which I'm sure you already know, that Shoreline has given a 24.2% raise to their employees, and that came out today. I was talking to a fellow colleague. And in addition, this brings me to the point that I was doing some research, and Inc. magazine in 2018 has named Seattle as the 6th most expensive city in the nation. So we now surpass Boston, Los Angeles, Anaheim, and Honolulu, all places that when I moved here 20 years ago, the cost of living was less. So in order to retain and recruit the top teachers that we have here, please, again, speak to the bargaining team and enable us to be able to continue to work for the district that we care so passionately about. I spoke about it briefly before, but as passionate and as loyal as we are about Mercer Island, it also comes down to the financial aspects of sustaining a living for our own families outside of school. So there will be teachers, if we don't receive something comparable to the districts around us, there are going to be teachers that need to look elsewhere for a job to sustain a comfortable living in this city, a fabulous city, but again, the 6th most expensive city in the nation. And then as teachers leave and we're trying to recruit new teachers are of course going to be looking at districts where they can make the most they can as well. And I would hate to see Mercer Island start getting the leftover pool of teachers to choose from. We have parents here tonight, parents of graduates and parents of current students, and I know that many of you have current students in the district. And each student deserves to have the very best. The parents here pay a lot in taxes, and they've moved here to the island so they can have top schools. And their children deserve the very best each and every day when they walk into the classroom. So please help make that happen, and thank you very much for listening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Scott Ritchie. Please come to the podium. And if anybody else wanted to speak, please sign in at the desk.
Hello, my name's Scott Ritchie, and I'm a resident here on Mercer Island. This is going into my 6th year of being an employee here with the district, and I have a son entering the 9th grade at the high school here. Spoke to the board last year when we had this similar situation with our contract and explained what was going on with me personally. Well, things have changed. I no longer pay the same amount for rent. It has increased. I now pay $21.50 a month for my apartment here. Of course, this does not include food for my son and I, electricity, gas, and insurance for the truck, trash services, or fees for my son for his extracurricular activities. We don't have cable, Netflix, Amazon Prime, or any other streaming service. It's just not in the budget. We have our over-the-air antenna, and we make do. I worked at West Mercer. I worked at Island Park with Christy in the special needs program. I'm a bus driver. Do student supervision at lunchtime at the middle school. I cover Nurse Bonnie for her lunch each day. Last year, I was blessed at late March, 3rd trimester, to get into a 6th grade math class due to an overload situation and provided another hour of pay a day. It's tough making ends meet. I'm hoping that this fall there's a new position at the middle school for a person in security. This person will need a lunch hour. I'm hoping the half hour that I have between my A lunch and my B lunch, because I work a half hour, get a half hour, work a half hour, and have to stay there, and then I cover Nurse Bonnie, that maybe I can get an extra half hour there covering this security personnel's lunch, just to get me up to 6.5 hours a day, I think. I don't remember right now. And then maybe I'll get lucky and another overload position will happen, and I'll get into that classroom as well to make it happen. I know the district can't do anything about my rent directly, and I know the odds, it'll go up again next July. One might ask, why do I live on the island? Doesn't really matter going out. You add in transportation to get back and forth to the island, get my kid to band, Boy Scouts, more money than what? I stay on the island to buy dinner at an outrageous cost on the island to eat dinner. It just doesn't add up. So what am I left to do? I'm left to do what these millennials are doing. Every 2 years, go find a new job where they're paying more. And that's what I think I'm gonna have to do. I'd prefer not to quit working for the district, but if the board doesn't step up to the plate like many other districts have and provide us with the monies we so rightly deserve from the McCleary decision, you may have more just than the positions I hold to replace in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public input tonight? Okay, that's all we had submitted. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your comments. Superintendent Kolaski, did you want to make any comments at this time?
There we go. This does head into my superintendent report, and so as part of that, I can give a brief bargaining update. So I'd like to start with thank you all for coming. Nice to see you here, especially with clear skies. We are, as everyone knows, continuing to work collaboratively with the MIEA to reach a settlement that serves the mutual interests of both parties and is fiscally sustainable, and most importantly, puts the interest of our students first. We do have another session scheduled this Saturday, as was mentioned, and hope to have some resolution at that time. Just a reminder that we were here last year, as many of you spoke to, and we do have a current 2-year contract, and that current contract did take into consideration some of the McCleary dollars because they were in anticipation of what was coming. So please do keep that in mind as we work through this process. But again, thank you for being here. Other parts of my report include the preparations that have been going on to get ready for our student day, our first student day on September 5th. So a huge thank you to our maintenance and operations crew who have really worked hard all summer doing a tremendous job preparing our facilities. Rooms have been moved and reconfigured, and carpets have been cleaned, and floors have been waxed, and an inordinate amount of floor wax has been used to get our floors shiny and ready, and the grounds have been spruced up and cleaned up, and all the safety inspections have been conducted as well. So if you walk around our facilities this week as people are starting to come back, you can see that they're ready to welcome staff and students for the new school year. A specific shout out to our Mercer Island High School staff for their work, particularly this week in monitoring the health and safety of our students and staff as they've been, were scheduled to be engaged in outdoor activities. I particularly would like to call out Nick Wold, who's the associate principal in charge of athletics and facilities. He did an amazing job this week of scheduling a variety of groups indoors, making sure that everyone was not exposed to the unhealthy smoke in the air. Band camp, as well as a variety of fall athletics, all worked together real collaboratively to make the best of the situation and ensure that everyone was healthy. But we were able to get the band out on the field this afternoon, so it was great to hear and see them. This week, both Mercer Island High School and Islander Middle School held their Fee and Photo Days. And again, a huge thank you to the staff and all the volunteers who assisted in making this kind of a successful kickstart for the new school year. And in particular, a shout out to our technology instructional coaches and our technology department staff who were present at all 3 of the days, Tuesday and Thursday at the high school and Wednesday at Islander Middle School, in making sure that our students were able to get their iPads and get through all the glitches with that. And just to let the board know that next week we welcome back staff officially in preparation for the first student day. And on Monday and Tuesday we have our new teacher orientation days. And we are welcoming 57 new certificated staff to our MISD family. And as we look through the resumes of these new staff, they represent 7 countries plus the United States, 15 states, including Washington, and various parts of Washington as well. Wednesday then is our LID day, Learning Improvement Day at all sites. Thursday is our Tech Day, and Friday, all staff are invited. If it's not a regular work day for them, we've also invited our classified staff to work together at the sites on our safety and emergency preparedness for the upcoming school year. And that's all for my report.
Thank you, Donna. I would also like people to know that our next item on the agenda, if you, in case you want to stay a little longer, is our hearing on the budget. So for those of you who are interested in line-by-line type information, we have the full document posted on Board Docs for for the public to review. And Director Bergstrom has some copies of a smaller document that's called Understanding the Budget, and those are available for people to pick up. And we'll be spending some time going over the budget, and it's up for approval tonight. So you are welcome to stay. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate everything you do for our district, and thank you for being here for the coming school year. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 4, partial governance process monitoring. Item A, public hearing on the 2018-2019 operating budget. This is a second reading. And this is part of Board Policy 1800, Operating Expectation 6, Budgeting and Financial Planning, Resolution number 670. And this is an action item, and hopefully will include some discussion and presentation by Director Bergstrom. Thank you.
Good evening, directors, and good evening, members of the public and audience. Tonight is our public hearing on the 18-19 operating budget, school year 18-19 operating budget, as required by law, and also operational expectation number 6, budget and financial planning. The last board meeting, we had some discussion about some of the guiding principles that came into the budget and things that contributing factors. The state did come through with additional funding, and part of that decision was the additional money for salaries, as well as the related payroll taxes and benefits that come with those salaries. Furthermore, as we have began planning through the budget, we took a look at our contractual requirements, requirements that were part of our collective bargaining agreement in terms of required staffing, and that necessitated the addition of some additional staffing units. As promised last year at this time, in the 17-18 budget, we removed the instructional coaches. We felt that that wasn't a sustainable program at that time, with the additional money coming from the state and with our local enrichment levy. We wanted to fulfill the promise that we made to the board and to the community that we would restore those coaches. We have restored those coaches. We have 4 instructional coaches, 2 at the elementary level and then 2 at the secondary level. We have added an additional counselor at the middle school to help with the counseling load there, as well as the 504 or the ADA accommodations that are required. The budget also includes a capacity. We built in some capacity as we have not yet concluded our bargaining with the unions. We have attached some additional capacity. The contract required that we pass through a 3.1% cost of living adjustment. The salary schedules that are in the addendum, or the appendix, I believe it's called the appendix, exhibits, my apology, and the exhibits in the back reflect a 3.1 increase as required by the agreement. Other considerations that we've made while planning for the budget, there are some items that are upcoming that concern us in terms of benefit provisions. As we've discussed frequently, the state is moving all school employees to the School Employee Benefit Board. We will no longer locally bargain or locally contract our health insurance options. And as such, we're stepping into a brave new world in terms of supporting that. The School Employee Benefit Board is not, the funding decisions have not yet been made. The funding decisions as to how much the state will provide us will come in December with the governor's budget proposal. After that, the Healthcare Authority will take, and the SEB board will take that budget and go out to the providers and get quotes. So we will not have any estimate as to how much it will actually cost us until probably early spring of next year. There are estimates that additional costs to districts can range anywhere from $1 million to $7 million. So our assumptions have included some capacity for additional expenditures related to health insurance. The SEB comes into effect in January 1, 2020. So we have roughly 14 months left with our current provider, which we got another great deal. We got another 0.75% off of our health insurance this year because we renewed our contract early. So Blue Cross really has delivered for us. They managed to keep our price not only lower than it was the previous year, but actually lower than it was for 17-18. So it's great news for everybody in the district. Additionally, some additional staffing requirements we've needed to add was special education. Our special education program at Northwood and West Mercer has just blossomed significantly. The preschool program is anticipated to start at 28 students. I believe that was the last number I heard. And anticipated end somewhere around 37. At the start of 17-18, we were roughly around 14 when we started. So it has doubled. And we are looking at adding additional physical capacity to Northwood, which is reflected in the capital budget for the additions and the projects that are there. We are looking to continue to provide resources to our funded negotiated contracts, as well as compensation benefits to our non-represented employee groups. We will be following operational expectation number 4, salaries and compensation, which we will present to the board, I believe, in the next couple months. I'm not sure the schedule off the top of my head, but we will be providing comparative data for all of our groups to the board as a public document. Any questions so far?
Just a clarification.
Yes.
The OE4 says develop compensation and benefit plans that attract and retain the highest quality staff and reward employees consistent with the political marketplace. And so I just wanted to highlight that, and that's one of the board's or the operational expectations from their superintendent. And so thank you for calling that out. That's all I just wanted to underline.
Okay.
I had a comment or question about the SEB. So they are saying that there it is. They're saying that districts could expect between 1 and 7 million increase in expenses above what they're already spending on healthcare. So does that vary according to size, or it just is going to depend on the deal? And if we're getting an especially good deal, does that mean we're going to be higher up or small? So does that bring it lower down? Can you give us like a ballpark of expectation there?
So we've got a great deal with Premier Blue Cross right now because we are independently contracting with them. Our employee group has we're healthy enough that our claims have been significantly low, and as such, statistically, we are a much safer bet for Blue Cross. Because SEB is a statewide board, those contracts and those decisions will be taken out of our hands completely at the local level. So the Healthcare Authority, it's much like PEB, the Public Employees Benefit Board. The Healthcare Authority contracts directly with the providers, and then the organizations that are under the umbrella individuals can pick from those programs. Currently, we have a benefit pool. So as individuals, depending on what plan they choose, from what we have, if they're not using their full benefit allocation, that money is pooled for the benefit of others. Under SEB, there is no pooling. It is individual pay. So there are estimates that the cost of SEB will be somewhere around be funded around somewhere about $916 per person. That's apportioned by the state. We have such significant number of staff above and beyond the state allocation for staffing that we would be obligated for that $916 per person. Plus, if we have any employees that choose not to partake in the benefit board, they choose to waive their medical insurance, we will be required to pay their individual employee contribution as well, to keep the pool solvent. So it kind of really depends on how much the state will be funding us and what the plans come out as. The estimates use that $916, and then they take a look at how many employees are above and beyond the formula. So we would probably be at the lower end of that spectrum, simply because we're a smaller district. But districts similar to our size are estimating somewhere about $1 million to $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Okay. And if there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt again. Not interrupt, I'm sorry. We're also committed to delivering our special education services and programs, supporting our staff evaluation system, and we are demonstrating this commitment by restoring our instructional coaches. We're actually taking a look at revising the whole instructional coaching program and what it means, taking a look at our technology teachers on special assignment and having them become technology instructional coaches, I believe is what we're looking at. So we're trying our hardest to maintain this commitment and improve the quality of education as well. And then maintaining using the capital levy funds to support the one-to-one iPad program, as well as technology instruction and assistance throughout the district. We are a highly technologically advanced district compared to some others, as well as maintaining a 7th period at the high school and the K-5 Spanish language program. Those are commitments that we've made to the community, and we felt it important to maintain those commitments. In terms of the other funds that the district uses, the general fund is the general operations fund. It is the fund that we use to pay for salary, insurance, gas for the buses, field trips, internet, utilities. The capital projects fund is money that is funded through the capital projects levy and is used for making significant improvements or constructing new buildings. The capital projects fund this year, I believe we are anticipating revenues of just over $6.5 million and spending an expenditure of about $10.5 million. We have over several years, we've managed to save on several of our projects and carried over a healthy fund balance in the capital projects. Capital projects money can only be used for facilities and building and land. So this is allowing us to put a brand new roof on the high school, which has come in on time, which was already a very fast time. We got a great contractor and below budget. So brand new roof. We're also looking at using the capital projects fund to upgrade the emergency radio and transportation radio systems. We'll be getting whole new radios for all the buildings as well as the buses, and a brand new repeater which will improve signal reception throughout the island. It was a lesson that we learned during the unfortunate events of the middle school, that our radios just could not crack the shell of some of those buildings, as well as our cell phones. So we are moving to a digital band radio with Motorola. Motorola has been a fantastic help, and we're looking at other improvements as well. We're also looking at improvements to Mario 8 Pool, looking at energy efficiency improvements, as well as mechanical and electrical improvements, and structural improvements to improve the insulation of the building. Also, in the other funds, we have the debt service fund, which is the funds we use to repay the bonds that the district has issued to build the Northwood, the addition at the middle school, and the addition at the high school. We are trying very hard to keep the tax payments at a consistent rate for the taxpayers on the island. We have had some fairly smaller payments on our debt service for the last couple years. Those payments will start ramping up over time. We do have some fund balance that we've built up, and we will be eroding that as time comes, as the payments increase, trying to keep that tax payment consistent. The transportation vehicle fund that is specifically used for purchasing buses, and Director Jorgensen, you asked last meeting about the cost of electrical buses. Electrical buses are about $300,000 per bus for a large bus, so it's about twice the cost of our regular buses. We would also need to take a look at laying down new wiring, new conduits, and finding appropriate space for the charging stations. So there would be some additional capital costs, probably about another $100,000. So, again.
Appreciate you circling back there.
Oh, absolutely. Revenues for the Transportation Vehicle Fund come either from levies or depreciation payments that the state gives us as our buses depreciate and roll off the schedules. So much accounting fun. And then the ASB fund. The ASB fund is the money that is collected and managed and for the benefit of the student programs at the buildings. The ASB is usually the scariest fund to work with, simply because it's the one I have the least control over. But the students have done a fantastic job with it. They've used it to a great extent. It is also a very hard fund to budget, simply because we don't know how some of the fundraisers will work, or the timing of expenditures will be different, because the clubs decide to do different things as time goes on. In the back, under the exhibits, we have our general fees schedules, salary schedules, salary schedules, supplemental schedules, and the 4-year forecast. This is the first year that the state has mandated districts to use a 4-year forecast. It is a difficult process going out 4 years. Our enrollment numbers vary greatly from year to year, and a 4-year forecast is difficult because it's all assumptions, and assumptions are great things until you prove them wrong. So while the 4-year forecast, we did our best to look at the expenditures within the district and the revenues within the district, we do have some slight concern over the 4-year forecast. In year 4, we have some concern over it. However, we are not binding ourselves to the 4-year forecast. It is mainly a projection tool. What we're asking the board to do and approve tonight is just the 18-19 operating budget. Do we have any additional questions?
I just want to, as I'm turning into the exhibits here, so at the end of the 4-year forecast, which again is, you don't have a crystal ball, so that's pretty difficult. But essentially, the forecast would put us in the fund balance of negative $1,224,000, which is a lot better than some other districts are faring in their 4-year
yes.
forecast right now.
So part of our concern is that we have been projecting deficit spending for the last several years. And as the years go through, we've had higher than projected enrollment. We've received windfall money from the state. And so we've wound up coming out roughly where we started. My concern with that is, while it's a historical trend that we've budgeted less, or budgeted more and spent less, there will come a point where our enrollment does not meet projection. While I don't want to keep crying wolf, essentially, I don't want to be the boy who cries wolf for the district. It is concerning for me to see a fund balance reaching a negative position in the 4-year outlook. Which is why over the next year we're going to take a much deeper look into how we're budgeting, what we're spending on, how we are tracking our spending, and our staffing. As I've said, we are head and shoulders way above the staffing formulas that the state provides us. We are almost twice the staffing level for classified staff, and we are about 40 teachers above for the certificated staff. So it's we're going to have to take a much deeper look into what are we doing with our programs, and are the programs sustainable.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So I did a little bit of research. I know that OSPI has published on their website it's the prototype funding formula for a prototypical school. Do you know the easiest route to get to that, so that folks who are curious to see what the prototypical formula that all of this is based on from OSPI is? Because I've found the numbers, and it lays it out pretty clearly that for an elementary school of 400 students, you receive 1.2 administrators and 0.7 this and 0.2 that. And I know that you can expand on that formula if it's quantifiable. But for folks to get to that is tricky.
OSPI's website is not the easiest website to navigate. I will admit that. And I don't know if you've seen a simplified version or the actual funding document. The actual funding document is about 60 pages long.
Right.
So the easiest, I believe the easiest way to get there would be a search for OSPI. If I click on the search bar, OSPI SAFS, School Apportionment and Finances Services Reports. District reports, and then select Mercer Island from the drop-down menu, and then click search, and we'll bring up last many years of funding reports. If you're looking at the funding, if you want to find out what we're funded for, go to all apportionment reports. It'll lay out how much we're being funded for the different categories, and then as you scroll through the pages, it'll lay out what the formulas are. Make sure you're in bed when you read this. You don't want to fall off your couch and hurt yourself when you fall asleep. There's other reports. Special education will show what our special education funding formulas are. Full-time enrollment is a month-by-month, grade-by-grade enrollment report. Head counts, it's a month-by-month, grade-by-grade head count report. Enrollment and head count are two different numbers, and it's easy to conflate them. Enrollment is essentially the amount of seat time that a student has, and that's what we are funded on. Head count is a warm body in a seat. We get funded by head count. We build buildings by, no. We get funded by FTE, or enrollment. We get funded by we build buildings by head count. I confused myself. And then there's more reports on special education enrollment, and then levy authority. Then this essentially lays out what our levy authority was. This report will be changing. This is the last year we collect under this formula, unfortunately. So those will be changing. The F-195 is the budget. We have not approved the 18-19 budget yet, the F-18-19 F-195. Once it's been approved, it'll go to LSPI for review, and then it'll be uploaded to the website. The F-196 that you see for the 16-17 year, I don't know why, because we're still in 17-18. The F-196 is the year-end financial report. So it's a very similar format to the F-195. Again, in bed, be careful. And it outlays essentially all the funds, program by program, like activities, objects, what we spend for the year, as well as some other statistical reports. So.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's not easy to find, even when you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So for folks to have a little bit of a roadmap to find out where to get to all of this information, because it is all public information.
It is all public information.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ty, for doing this, and thank you for all the work you've been doing. a lot of changes with the state as well as this 4-year plan. I appreciated Brian's comment about the 4-year end surplus. Is that assuming 0 on safety net? Or what was your assumption?
Yeah, that
on
assumes we haven't traditionally budgeted for safety net simply because safety net is so hard to predict
Yeah.
in terms of what we are going to be receiving, as well as we are not certain that safety net will be continuing in the future with the increases that have come for special education funding. Is special education funding what we're getting now sufficient? No. There will still be significant costs that we will be incurring. But this budget does not account for any safety net.
Okay. Something that you've mentioned, I just want to highlight to anybody in the audience that may be watching us is, we have the bond that funded the new school constructions. We have capital and technology levy that passed, and we have the bus levy that passed. All that money we legally cannot spend on salaries for the most part. I think with capital and technology levy, we can get away with some technology TOSAs, but in general, the money you're talking about unfortunately, it's not on the table for salaries. Something else I think for the community to recognize is we've got 3 elementary schools that are 60 years old and half of a middle school that's 50 years old. And so that capital projects money, a lot of that goes towards maintaining that. And if we are ever to have opportunity, any board in the future, to rebuild some of those schools, that's a lot of property tax. So appreciate the maintenance that everybody's doing on those buildings. With OE4 coming up, salary schedules are public documents. Anybody can go and take our public document, compare it, and it is a goal of our superintendent to be, I forget what the word was, but highly competitive. But a lot of that you can publicly compare. Something that is often referred to is attrition, and OE4 is about retaining and attracting. And Mercer Island's had some challenges over time just with commutes, property values, a lot of the districts around us becoming more competitive as the whole region has become more attractive. So the Mercer Island that we are now is different than the Mercer Island 30 years ago. One thing that's not publicly necessarily measurable, I don't think, is retention rates in terms of our teachers. And not now, but in the future with respect to the OE4s, maybe that might be something worth considering as a document just to track our retention rate. It might not necessarily be appropriate for that report. Maybe it's more appropriate for the report on teacher, I think, the diversity. But I just wanted to throw that out. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Tracy. Are you referencing the Human Resources Diversity Action Plan, which we will be doing a report on as well in the fall? So we can take a look at it there. And certainly we do a scattergram that shows where all of our staff sits, our certificated staff. And so you do see on our scattergram that we do have what I call the far right-hand corner, because when you look at the salary schedule, it goes towards the right-hand corner of the max out, which is number of years, and of course education, and we have a high amount of our staff that sit in that high number of years.
Yeah, and I should emphasize that that one number of retention rate is because of the demographics of the districts and their teacher seniority, et cetera, are not necessarily going to be comparable apple to apple. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ty. I wanted to kind of piggyback on some of the comments about that 4-year summary, which in looking at it, it is really, I think, rather helpful to see as we project things out, especially because in this coming school year, we have this bump of money, but then we have the decrease in our local levy dollars. And over time, we have been paying more than the state salary schedule, and that money comes out of our levies. And so when the state says you need to pay more money now to the teacher salaries, but then we can get less from our local levy, some of that we have to plan for in the future beyond this year, correct?
Absolutely.
And then I think looking at I think it was Brian that pointed out that when we look 4 years out, it looks like we're going to be running a deficit. And so while you say we often over budget and underspend, and that's great, we can't count on that year to year, especially with all these changes coming that are unpredictable completely. So it does seem to me like what you're proposing here is a conservative financial decision to say we need to be able to fund those salaries, whatever salary increase is given this year, to be able to sustain that out into the future until we know more. Because these summaries are, as you said, predictions based on assumptions, but we don't have all the information. And each year we will, this year we're just going to approve this coming year's budget. Next year we'll approve that next budget. It'll probably look different than this one for the following year. And then we'll just keep projecting out. And that while it may seem challenging for you, I appreciate that budgeting 4 years out is very difficult. I think it could be helpful for us and our community to really understand that, especially in this blip year, what we're up against as far as the unpredictable nature of our school funding model in this state. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It is, and I do, having seen the 4-year budget now and looking at it, I do appreciate the additional transparency that will come with it. Again, when you're changing into a new system, it's always a struggle to get this system to work for you in terms of what you're trying to get on there and what you're looking at in terms of a budget. So I agree. 100%. We want that budget to be as transparent and consistent as possible. So that's why over the next year and a half, 2 years, we're going to be really revising how we work on our budgets. We are on with a forecasting software called Forecast 5. There's a lot of districts in Washington that use it. It's actually a national product that districts use and allows you to forecast budgets for several years, and it looks at your trends and it makes projections based on it. So we're going to be taking a much deeper look at how we've been spending, what we're spending on, and is it really sustainable? OSPI released a report, I believe it was yesterday. Superintendent Reichdahl issued a letter about sustainable salary increases, and there was a chart that came with it called, I believe it was risk factors. And it was an interesting look. They took the data that every district submits to OSPI on the S275, or S275? Yeah, S275. I don't know why I blanked that. The S275, there's so many numbers and letters. The S275 report, which details the total salary of every individual within the district. And they took the instructional salaries, and they took the average instructional total salary for each of those teachers, compared it against what we're funded at, and what we will be funded for 18-19, and the levies. Mercer Island came out as 9th highest total salary per FTE, average total salary. We had an average total salary of just under $82,000. The state funded salary for our regionalized area for Mercer Island, we get 1.18 factor. So instead of I believe it's 64,000, we get 77,000. So we're spending essentially 6% per teacher that we're apportioned more. And then we're paying the entirety of the 82,000 for all the 40 other teachers that we support. we are losing about over 34% of our levy capacity. So we do have some significant concerns over sustainability, especially on the long outlook. We will find a way.
Thank you. Any other comments before we vote on the resolution to approve the budget?
May I go ahead and make the motion that we approve this budget?
Will you second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 for resolution number 670. Thank you very much. And sorry, I didn't ask you if you had any other comments. Okay, next one. Thank you for those of you who have stayed this long. Appreciate it. Item B, facilities and capital assets update on the 6-year capital facilities plan. Also second reading. Ty?
Are we closing the public hearing at this
I'm
point?
sorry. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, we are closing the public hearing on the operating budget and resuming the regular meeting with item 4B.
So tonight, last board meeting, we brought for the first reading the capital facilities plan, the 6-year capital. Thank you. Last meeting, we brought before the board the capital facilities plan, our annual update to the 6-year plan for our first reading. Tonight, we're bringing it for approval. Again, the capital facilities plan is it's an annual assessment and look at our enrollment forecast for the next 6 years as to are our buildings being able to sustain the growth, or are any of our buildings growing, and do we need additional capacity? It's an annual update that we take a look at. Last couple years, in the last couple plans, we were able to include the cost of the addition at the middle school, the addition of the high school in Northwood, because our enrollment projections showed that we had enrollment growth at each of those facilities. The 6-year capital facilities plan allows us to assess an impact fee when new houses are built on the island. So that's why we're including the cost of the buildings as a look in terms of, are we growing, are we not growing? This year we needed to take the middle school addition off because our 6-year enrollment forecast didn't sustain the growth that had been going. We are looking at keeping Northwood and the high school on this year and next year as well. We'll have to reevaluate next year as to whether or not predicted growth will sustain those. In terms of the impact fee, for the single family impact fee, single family residents, the impact fee we were looking at is $4,035.47. The multifamily residents will be $2,632. Again, these are proportional shares, so we take a look at the number of students in houses, net new houses built on the island, as well as net new multifamily residences. We take a look at the number of students occupying those buildings over the last several years, and then we do some numerical magic and come up with the formula. I believe we didn't have many questions last time about the plan. Are there any additional questions for this meeting?
Just an appreciation. Yeah. Just an appreciation for the work that you've done. I know you had the first reading and you brought that initially to us back in June, so it allowed myself and others time to kind of really comb through it. Appreciate kind of redoing the calculation with the SFR, the single family residence, in terms of, how should I say it? Looking at the occupancy rates of those SFRs that were built over the past 3 years, but looking at their occupancy rates this year as opposed to integrated over the past 3 years. And that result ended up like a occupancy rate of 0.28 students per house versus 0.11. So that was a very nice beneficial recalculation, so appreciate that. So I plan to support this. I think next year, given that the multifamily, I think, is a 5-year look-back window, it might be interesting to, as I mentioned before, to maybe consider the SFR as a 4-year. A, it might help the ratio, and B, we're going to get the benefit of more, less volatility because it's a longer time average window, which I think everybody appreciates. The district appreciates and developers appreciate just having a little bit more, less volatility in those numbers. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, or somebody want to propose a motion to approve this capital and facilities plan?
I will move that we adopt the 6-year capital facilities plan.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, and next up, item C, Board Policy 5415, Educational Administration and Support Personnel.
So Ty is going to stay for this one as well, but Aaron and I might certainly be helping out because this is one of the policies that is a team effort as we work through numbers and language. So you have 3 attachments here. You have the draft of 5415 with some word changes that affect the non-represented groups. And then you also have 5415 P2, which is our professional, technical, and administrative support employees, and P3, which is our facilities support employees that are non-represented as well. And then both of these groups, along with the management team, which was approved back in June because their contracts fall on a different calendar than these two, all are reflected in Board Policy 5415. So we thought it was prudent to take the opportunity that since there were some changes and some cleanup that needed to be done in the policy itself, that we would bring that forward at this same time. Ty, do you want to go through the numbers for us?
Sure. So for both the facilities and professional technical group, we are adjusting the salaries to pass through the 3.1% COLA, as well as some adjustments that are needed for the for the facilities group. The facilities group was combined with our custodians. Our custodians have elected to join the union and will become part of that bargaining unit. So we're removing them from the schedule as well as making some adjustments to that schedule to bring it in line with the professional technical group as well as the management group in terms of structure. As well as a retention incentive, which matches the management teams and the professional technical group that we are bringing forward. We are increasing the technology stipend from $850 to $1,500, and increasing the number of vacation cash-out days from 5 to 8. It's a commensurate percentage increases for both of those to match the management team's increase in terms of vacation cash out and technology incentive. I believe that is the extent of our changes. Any questions?
I don't think so. Anything else to add?
just, we have 3 separate pieces that we'll need to do each one individually.
Okay. Can we start with motions? So the first one on there is Board Policy 5415, Series 5000 Personnel, Educational Administration and Support Personnel. So those edits therein need to be approved. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0. The next one is Administrative and Board Policy 5415P2. And so this one also has the edits that are posted. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. And the last one to approve is 5415P3 for the salaries and benefits facilities support schedule with those edits. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item D, Instructional Materials Committee approval.
So as Fred makes his way to the podium, this is an annual approval that we are seeking, and I will let him talk to you a little bit about the process and procedures.
Great, thank you. So this is one of those approvals that you make. It's not a committee of the board, but it's a committee that you approve because of the requirements under 2019, where you improve instructional materials. And so I bring forward a list of participants to you. These are parents, they are students, teachers, administrators. We include a librarian in here. So we try to pull from a wide range of constituents across the district to weigh in on the conversations that take place throughout the year. Instructional Materials Committee is slated to meet 4 times this school year. There have been years where we've added additional meetings and we post those to the website as we go along. But we typically hold the meeting in October, another one in January, again in March, and then before the end of the school year. That gives us time for at least a first and second reading by you, should materials come. So we do have some returning members this year, but we've had some attrition. Our 2 students returning are both going to be in their second year, and as you can see, they're seniors, so they will naturally go off after this year, and we'll be welcoming in new ones next year. We will have a new administrator join us, Melanie Reedy. One of our new associate principals will be onto the committee. And then we've had a number of faculty who have served their 3-year term. So it is a 3-year term. I try to keep it about a third, and third. It never works out that well because lives happen and people move away or decide that they can't participate. But all the schools are represented by both faculty and parents. And we try to maintain a balance of different grade levels, different content areas as it goes forward. So I'm excited about our team, excited about some new folks who are going to join us, as well as those returning. So I'll take any questions.
No questions? Okay. So we just need a motion to approve the Instructional Materials Committee as slated.
I move that we approve the 2017-18 Instructional Materials Committee.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And motion passes. Thank you. Our next one is item E, Board Policy 1800 OE9, Communication Support to the Board, interlocal agreement with City of Mercer Island for counseling services.
Great.
So Fred is
Go
going
ahead.
to present on this one as well. This is, again, an annual interlocal that our Board of Directors and the City Council also approved. You will see that it's noted that the City Council will be approving this at their September 4th meeting, but if there are any changes that should occur, we would bring it back to you for those changes to be approved as well. Fred.
Thank you. Director Battersby, on one thing, I know that we were adding the one on there. Is it attached here? It could be the version I'm on. Can you see it on yours, directors? Is there the attachment of the actual interlocal on there? So we'll get that up there just to kind of put some context behind it.
I see it in mine.
You do?
Oh, is it new?
No. I'm just not seeing it on this version that I loaded. Well, I know it well enough that I can speak to it. You can see it? I don't know why I'm not seeing it on this particular version here.
I don't think it was on the public.
It is on the It does have a little key on it, so maybe it's not on the
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, so maybe we just have to remove the
You have
key.
to log in.
Okay, we'll fix that. Nonetheless, you can see it there. I think, I certainly would never speak for you, but I know from your comments in public sessions as well as with our linkages that we are very grateful for our partnership with the city and Mercer Island Youth and Family Services. We will continue with the 7.5 counselors this year in the agreement. That means, for those who aren't as familiar, we'll have the 4 counselors at the elementary level. We will have the 2 full-time counselors at the high school, and then we'll have 1.5 positions at the middle school. That's been consistent with what we've had in the past. We will have one of the half-time people down at the middle school will be not returning. He's going to be working in the city and Mercer Island Youth and Family Services. We're bringing in a different staff member for that, so we're excited for that. So 20 hours per week, that's half-time as it goes forward. Other components of the agreement that we touched up and changed this year, we had left out some references to gender identity, in that that's an area that our counselors work with that hadn't been in previous agreements as we were agreeing to them with the city. And just as Superintendent Koloski noted, typically the council has August meetings, and usually it's their first August meeting when they approve it, and then we usually see it at this meeting. They canceled their meetings in August, was my understanding, and so their next meeting is September 4th. If any changes are made from there, we will certainly bring it back to you to notify you about those changes from there. Director Battersby, anything else you want to add?
No, those are the key highlights, and as I said, maybe if you try refreshing, I don't know, I can see it on my end, so.
I can try to refresh in a second.
I would just like to say that I'm grateful that the city has expressed the intent to continue to honor these agreement terms, and that they demonstrate the generous support that has benefited our students, both for the city and the school district, and our whole community, so fantastically. And I also want to express or note that gratitude that the levy that they're proposing, if passed in November, would go beyond the terms of this agreement, and so I would imagine there would be an amendment of some kind if that were to pass, because the levy has proposed that they would pick up more of the cost, and this agreement states that we'll be paying part of the cost. So.
Yeah, and it probably depends on when that levy cycle starts and where it will coincide with our school year, because the Youth and Family Services counselors, as I understand it, because they work in our schools, they run on a slightly different calendar than other city employees, simply because of our school year is different. So I'm not sure the mechanics of it exactly,
Right,
but
and I'm
we
not
would
either,
definitely
but
revisit it.
again,
Carrie Sands with the city and Aaron, I'm sure, would start that conversation with respect to those technicalities. I'm usually working more on the teaching and learning side with Cindy Goodwin.
Great. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Let's see. Are you done presenting? I was going to.
Yes, I'll open it up to comments and questions.
Hey, I appreciate, again, echo Director Drinkwater's comments about appreciation for the city funding this. I did share with our president and our superintendent. I was just looking at Best Starts for Kids, the King County program. And again, I think the Mercer Island taxpayers pay about $2 million into it. And right now, under my, you can look at the award data. They've awarded about 420 awards. Every single school district is receiving money except for maybe Riverview and us. And so I hope, we've got a wonderful program. We've got wonderful cooperation with MIYFS. Got wonderful cooperation with the Schools Foundation as well as our Boys and Girls Club. I think we could have a standing type of grant response to their RFPs. And I certainly, I don't know who would be the appropriate thing, and maybe it would be a mutual thing, but I think it would be wonderful. It would be respectful to Mercer Island taxpayers if we submitted and had some of those applications pending. I looked at Bellevue. Bellevue received, Bellevue received $600,000. Bellevue Schools Foundation received $634,000. And Bellevue School District, in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, received $855,000. So that's about a little bit north of $2 million in a year. And I did look at the RFQs, or the request for proposals, RFPs, and I didn't see where we didn't meet eligibility requirements when I first looked through it. So, and even if we don't meet the eligibility requirements, perhaps because of our standard of living, I think it would be very strategic if us or another entity applied for it, and then at least we were turned down, and then we could put political pressure on our King County representatives to say, good tax philosophy benefits everyone. We don't expect to probably get $2 million out of the dollars we put in, but we should get something back. So that would be my hope, is that we participate somehow, and we participate soon. So.
And I think this came up, I know I don't remember the exact meeting, but I know we had a similar conversation maybe 6 months ago or so. And I'm on since that time, I added myself to the Best Start for Kids RFP notification, so I get the text messages when the new RFPs are coming. The two that just expired in August were not relevant to us, unfortunately. But now that those expired, I'm anticipating that they'll open up the next ones. It seemed like there was quite a lull from April. There was an April to June 2017 window. Unfortunately, we missed that. And then there was kind of this lull. I'm hoping they pick them back up because it is on my radar to continue to monitor those. So, the degree to which we can do that and whether or not that's YFS and the district or Boys and Girls Club in the district, looking at things. Obviously, YFS is probably the most logical partner pertinent to this discussion, but it's definitely on the radar.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? A motion to approve this interlocal agreement?
I move we approve the 2018-2019 interlocal agreement for counseling services.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item F, student representatives.
So your new board policy, 1250, which was adopted back in June, has a requirement that the selected student representatives are approved by the board. And so we went through our process last spring and now bring forward 2 names for you to approve. Caroline Atkinson as the recommended senior to be the representative to the board, and Meghana I knew I was going to say her name wrong. Sorry, Meghana. Kakbal is the junior representative, and we will have her with us, so I know I'll get her name right, for 2 years, because she's our junior who will then be the senior rep. And I have had the great pleasure, along with Principal Puckett, to do our first orientation with the students, and we are all really excited and ready to get started. So they will actually be here at our first meeting in September if you choose to approve them.
I move we approve the student representatives.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just an appreciation for our superintendent for spearheading this and making it so that our board, for perhaps the first time, can have a student voice up with us. So appreciate that.
The seats will be moved over a little bit at the next meeting because we'll have 2 more up here
Great.
as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, so if there are no other comments or discussion, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Excellent. So next one is G, Board Policy 4020, Mutual Respect and Civility Expectations. We have Director Battersby.
Yes, so Erin has come up to talk you through this very first reading and draft of a policy that, as it states in the public content here, is trying to honor the past work that has been really part of the mutual respect and shared responsibility commitments. And in honoring that, creating a policy that fits within the community relations section. And so, Erin, do you want to go into a little more detail?
Hi, thank you. The reason I'm here today is to bring forward the Mutual Respect and Civility Expectations draft policy. We've gone ahead and put it in our community relations because the idea is that it would govern or apply to everyone. We, as a district, were talking, and we had input from both staff and administrators, both classified and certificated staff, appreciating the work that went into the mutual respect and responsibility pages, but noting that they aren't readily accessible or often referred to. And in recognition of that, is sort of that policies and procedures are an essential part of any organization, including the school, and that's sort of the first question. Is it in your policy? So we went ahead and we tried to build a policy using the mutual respect and responsibility foundation that was already created as the basis for this policy. And the idea is to provide clarity and help reinforce the standards that are expected of all district stakeholders, and to provide a roadmap on the day-to-day interactions between our staff, employees, our students, and all of those who were party to the many different mutual respect and shared responsibilities, because there's a leadership team commitment, there's a PTA commitment, there's a student commitment, there's a board commitment. And looking at that, we use that as our base, and then as a team, myself leading it, we looked at surrounding districts and that have adopted a civility policy, because WASDA does not have one. So there is not a WASDA model. So we tried to build off of the work of other districts to sort of see what they did, because this is not a new concept. And so we specifically looked at the work of Issaquah, Lake Washington, Washougal, Spokane, and there was one other one immediately that we looked at. I think I already mentioned Lake Washington. So we looked at those and neighboring districts and tried to build a model that could be transparent and easily located for everyone. And the concept is to really capture the work that we did, make it a living thing that will be ongoing, so that it can be infused in the fabric of our culture, because it is the expectations and the standards that we've already identified as critical to a effective functioning district, and we want it to be transparent to everyone and readily found. So that's really the concept behind it. Now, this is just a first reading, and it's a draft sort of based on those data points. So with that, do you have any questions? And I do have copies, if anyone wants them, and I will attach them to the agenda, of the policies that are available online from those other districts that we sort of looked at.
Yeah, and I'll try to condense it in. So thank you for the work on this, and it's an interesting document. in reference to the original mutual respect and shared responsibilities document that was created, I did some digging back on that, and I know that we now have those agreements that are kind of agreed upon about all of our different community groups exist on the website and kind of are reaffirmed every year or every 2 years. The first time I became aware of the mutual respect and shared responsibilities document was when Jackie Brown and Debbie Hansen shared it with the PTA, Mercer Island PTA Council, and that was in November of 2015. And I believe they had worked with Dr. Plano at the time, the superintendent at the time, to create an explanation of how that document came to be. And they shared that in the spring of 2004, the school board and nearly 60 community members participated in a 3-day conflict resolution workshop conducted by a facilitator. It was facilitator Robert Chadwick is the name of the facilitator. The purpose of the workshop was to address long-standing conflicts of the board and community level, to bring to light the understanding of the source of the conflict, teachers feeling disrespected by parents and parents feeling disrespected by teachers. The follow-up to this work is the document titled Mutual Respect and How We Work Together was the original title, including shared responsibility statements from the board, administration, parents, students, and community members. Now, it's said here in the document that participants on the Mutual Respect and Shared Responsibility Task Force have been hard at work. The mission of the task force was to continue the work of the conflict resolution workshop. I don't believe that the task force is still together. I'm going to make that assumption that at some point the Mutual Respect and Shared Responsibility Task Force was disbanded. And I won't continue to read the document, but I have this to share, to post on documents for the public to see, and I made the notes on when I received the document, by who, and all the dates concerning that. This new document here, adding in the civility expectations, while I'm not necessarily opposed to it, it certainly transforms the intent to me of the original Mutual Respect and Shared Responsibilities document that the task force and the workshop had put together. And I'm struck by the fact that it was not just the school board, but also a committee of 60 individuals from throughout the community that came together to create that document. And it's been lost and it's been kicked around, and it's back on the website, and certain groups bring it out. But I printed off all those pages, and so I kind of did a comparison between the two. I think some of it is captured in the beginning of the new document, which would be a board policy. I think it's great for the board itself as a policy to adopt our behavior and our commitments to the mutual respect and shared responsibilities. I'm not against a civility expectations policy per se. I think we have a lot of that in our handbooks and expectations and volunteer trainings and things that we put together as a school district. And I didn't know that you had worked on this document, so one of the first people I wanted to talk to about this was you, to see how does this compare with First Amendment rights, free speech rights, and freedom of expression, which is one of the few things that kind of made me hesitant. But we're just starting as a discussion point, so that's what I had to add to the conversation. Hopefully, as we move forward, if we can decide to move forward with this document, that we can come up with something that does really establish some great boundaries and ground rules for civility. I think that's always awesome, while respecting free expression. As for the mutual respect and shared responsibilities document, I'm kind of would be interested in engaging with some of our original partners in the community that helped to create the original document, and continue that collaborative sense around that document, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Thanks.
So would you like me to, just to respond to, go ahead.
I think I'd like to hear from the other board members on their first take on this.
No problem. Deborah, do you have any comments or questions?
I really don't. I'm not as familiar with the history from the district, and in fact, not familiar at all. In reading this for the first time, was not frankly taken aback by anything that's in it. I think it's appropriate. I didn't see any, it's not my role here, but I certainly didn't have any concerns that anyone's rights were being violated with these expectations. I am interested to hear more about what Director Janine Upton has presented, because again, I don't have that history. But I think it's important, it's an important topic for us all to keep in mind when, frankly, working with anyone. So it certainly belongs here.
Thank you. No, you go ahead. No.
Let's see. Appreciate the update. I was a little bit thrown on the origin of this because I didn't necessarily hear it from the board per se, an interest in revamping this. If there's a district concern, a superintendent concern, administration concern, I'm wondering if that would be maybe more appropriate in something coming from the superintendent or the administration as opposed to a board policy document. So my initial take on this was I really like the mutual respect and shared responsibility commitment. I think it reads beautifully. I think it's aspirational. There's words like actively linking, listening openly, believing in best intentions, trusting. It's a very aspiring document. And whenever I meet somebody from the public who wants to share their concern, whether it be a teacher, a principal, an activity, I actually print this out and I bring it with them. And I mention if you've got I forget where it says it, but if you've got an issue, bring it to the point person first and then go up the chain of command. And that really, I think, empowers our teachers, empowers our principal, empowers our superintendent, so the board or a board member doesn't get involved in solving that. And so I think it's really a very helpful document for me as a board member. I've used it also with PTA council and reminded them when they question things, hey, this is a big system with a lot of different people. Please consider best intentions. Everybody's acting on best intentions. So then I fast forward and look at this new document, and I don't mean to be critical of Lake Washington or whoever this is coming from, but mutual shared respect and responsibilities is very different from civility expectations. It's not. That seems like we're now, in a way, censoring people's public input. And as I read the document, half the document is describing very poor conduct and behavior. It's not aspirational. If it's needed at the board level, then I mean, as a board member, needs to be told that. If it can be just as an OE, that's fine too, and I respect that. Another challenge I have with this, especially since it's coming from the board, we're outlining expectations for employees, parents, volunteers, students, and the public. Nowhere there is this reciprocated where we're having to follow the same rules. So I don't think this would be received well by the public if we're mandating how they talk to us, but we're not holding ourselves to the same level. And there's just, there's some specifics in here that if we choose to go there, then I'll bring them up. Just like, let's see, expectations. Sorry, here, just give me a second. parents and public should treat staff and students while on district property the following way. It's like, I'm not sure if that really makes a difference, even if they're not on district property or not. And some of the examples of directing vulgar, obscene, profane gestures or words at another individual, if we start looking at this, I think we're going to have to do a lot of wordsmithing, because I think an individual or a group, and maybe we need to do this wordsmithing, maybe this is required, but I think I'd like to be told why we're doing this right now and why we need to do this. Maybe it's a good idea, but I'd like to hear why.
Thank you for all the input there. I agree with a lot of what was said. I did note that we do have some policies that touch on this subject already in community relations in the 4000 series. The Administrative Policy 4010A, the staff communications responsibility, 4220A, general complaints, and then in the personnel section in the 5000 series, 5253A, maintaining professional staff-student boundaries. So there's some similar language in those, which maybe we need a bunch of different policies, I'm not sure, but something to look at as well. I am not opposed to having this as a board policy, but like Ralph said, I think if it's coming from administration because you're feeling that that's a necessity in our district, that I think it could be appropriately administrative policy as well, or instead of. And I'd be happy to take a look at it further and discuss more of the finer details, but I think a lot of good points were raised tonight. So do you want to add to it?
If you don't mind. Yeah, I think you just brought up a really great point. We've got policies kind of throughout that mention different aspects of this. And as we recently did our work in coherence governing and all of that, if by taking those pieces that are scattered about and can bring them into one consistent document that's easy to find and identify, which creates more coherence in our expectations, then I think that's a benefit to everyone. So, yeah.
Let me add one other thing in terms of if we're going to invest time in this. I did look back at the last time this was brought up. I think it was February 1st, 2017. And there was a discussion just on the original mutual shared, someone help me out, what's it called? Mutual shared.
Mutual respect and shared responsibilities. Doesn't quite.
And you know, this has been in existence since 2004. I think it's been affirmed several times. However, somebody actually told me the MIEA never really affirmed it. I don't know if that's true or not, but whatever. But the point being is, when we last talked about in 2017, just on an existing document that had been around for 13 years, there were some interesting discussion points about trust, whether it's really the school board's responsibility to trust or should it be to verify certain things. So if we're going to revisit this, it might also make sense to revisit the original document. So I don't know which way to go. And I would encourage anybody who I would encourage everyone for us to listen to that 2017 discussion, because we can kind of learn from history and see where the touch points were on that mutual shared document.
Donna, would you like to chime in?
There is no doubt that aspects of this policy are touched on in other policies, which in a final version, if the board moves forward, would reference those as well, so that it actually provides easy links to where else it's referenced, as well as what to do if you feel that this policy hasn't been upheld, so it would also reference complaint policies, discrimination, all those ones as well. So it does give kind of a, for lack of a better term, a catch basin for where things can be located versus having to reference things in different places. I think for myself as a superintendent, and I know staff when they first met me a year ago when things were brought to me, in my role of supporting, the response is frequently, what does our policy say? And so when things come up that don't necessarily have a specific policy, it does make it nebulous as to what our reaction can be, because again, it isn't stated specifically in a policy or an operational expectation as to how will we respond if there is a concern. So that's something to consider and to take into consideration as we work through whether or not to move forward with a specific policy. Erin, do you have further?
Yeah, I'd like to
insight?
respond to some of the questions, if that's okay. On firsthand, this is a draft. It was brought for your consideration. With respect to free speech, I did not have the same level of concerns with the things that were identified here. Similar to Director Lurie. That said, I do hear that it is not as positive a document as the ones that we were trying to base it on and capture. And again, the rationale for doing that is to get a catch-all, is to get something like you were fortunate enough to be, Director Giannini Upton, to be at a PTA meeting where it was discussed. The vast majority of our community aren't really aware of these expectations or of mutual respect and shared responsibilities. So it is a way to sort of identify and demonstrate a commitment to the standards that this group of 60 people worked hard to claim as important to our district. So that's the impetus. The other starting point to respond to you, Director Jorgensen, is that it is something that has been raised by staff and administrators, and staff at all levels, as something that would be significant to them. And it does, in the sort of second part of it, reference sort of the process of it, which goes back to what you mentioned at the last meeting, Director Giannini Upton, which was, you go back to the beginning. You start with the persons at the source of the concern. So it is sort of instilling and making a commitment at the board level to that type of engagement between one another, be it student to staff. And I think, fair point, I neglected to include the board in this, so add the board. And I think it would be just as valuable. I'm an attorney. I have a tendency to want to define things, so what is uncivil conduct, but you could edit this document to say uncivil conduct is defined as conducting oneself in a discourteous or disrespectful manner when communicating or interacting with others, period. There doesn't need to have this heavy, these are all the things that were specifically, that have occurred, and that have been negatively perceived. So there isn't a need to do that. So I would encourage you to consider it as a board policy, and if not, I would encourage my superintendent to consider it as an administrative policy, because I think that having a policy sends a distinct message as to what we value as a district, and I do feel the people in 2004 and the people on this board believe that these are important things to how we communicate. This is how we want people to be. This is how we want to demonstrate to our students, our children, of how you interact even when there's perhaps negative beliefs or differences of opinion. So either way, I would recommend that, but I would propose that we basically take a second crack at it, or I take a second crack at it, and maybe change the title to be back to mutual respect and shared responsibility. I'm not married to the idea of civility expectations. That was more modeled of what we saw in other districts, and maybe not delineate everything that we think is uncivil. It's just, it identifies for everyone who comes to this district, but you've been here since 2004, or you've been here for one day, or you're just perusing our website, that interacting with one another is something that we value, and we want those interactions to be positive, irrespective on what side of the fence you may be on, be it bargaining or any other type of situation. So I think that it has value. I don't specifically recall the meeting, and I will go back and look at that February 1st meeting, but I think this is being brought forth, and I personally will stand in support of this as something that I think has value to our district. And I would encourage you to consider it. So if you are so inclined, I'd like to bring forth for second reading a revised version of this for your consideration, taking into account that it needs to be more positive and really capture the spirit of positive interactions, which is what those earlier, those stakeholders were trying to achieve.
Sounds reasonable to me. Any other comments?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I would appreciate if a lot of the verbiage from the original document was captured early on, that aspiring, of the mutual shared, if a lot of that verbiage could be transported over, unless there was, for some reason, a need to change that. So I'd be open to that. Just to talk to my fellow board members on this, I mean, this is a board policy, so we should be involved in crafting this. It is good to have expectations of civility, but I also, I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't want to be too controlling and have a rule set, like a baseball rule set, when people are giving us public input, and be able to use this to, beat down feedback or to discourage feedback. My initial take is, you be you, and if you are disrespectful, you've got your own shovel, start digging your own hole, and I think that's usually how people react. I don't know if it's necessary to do that, but I would respect other people's opinions, and I'm not sure if that's exactly where I landed, but that's why I'm slightly hesitant to start defining my expectations of how people should interact with me.
With all due respect, Director, I think that the community, those stakeholders already defined what the expectations are, and this is just codifying it. So it sounds like I missed the mark, and I accept that. That's my error. And I accept that I missed the mark, but I think we've already defined what the expectations are. And I personally, I think that it is maybe easier for some people to hold the line as to what expectations are and how they expect to be treated than for others. And having a system that supports positive interaction can be important to those who maybe find it more difficult to deal with negative interactions, especially when the other person is being exhibiting some of the things that I defined as being uncivil conduct.
I think, I like where this discussion is going. I think I would like to see a reminder that this is not just in-person communications, but also online communications. As we know that there's been tremendous impact in online discussions that negatively impact our students and parents and teachers, frankly, everyone. And I think that I appreciate your Director Jorgensen's remarks. I think that this is a first draft, and we can get there, but I think that the goal should be the way in which communications are handled, not what is communicated. I think it's really easy to come in and tell someone that you're unhappy with something or that you want to see some changes without name-calling, bullying, intimidating. And I know that, I think I don't think it's going to be difficult to draw that distinction in a well-drafted policy. I think that's what you're saying. And there's no, I can't imagine there's any intent that we wouldn't want to hear concerns from anyone, but that needs to be done in a respectful, constructive, appropriate way.
And that is the objective, is certainly not to quell any feedback from the community. The idea is that there will be divergent opinions, and they can be shared and should be shared, because how else will we learn and grow and become a better system? But they can be done in a way that's not insulting, intimidating, or otherwise disrespectful.
I think it is needed. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't need it, but I believe that it is helpful to have a policy that's going to state our values and set a high bar for how we communicate with one another. And I agree, it has nothing to do with the content. It's the way a message can be delivered that can be really damaging or threatening or intimidating, and make one's workplace a very unpleasant place to be, or one's school, and if you're a student, or so I agree that it's needed. I think civility could be a fine word to put in there, and I think when I first read the mutual respect and responsibilities document and reading this document, I think it really calls to attention the need for such a document, because it means that there have been problems, and there have been incidents where someone has been intimidated to the extent that they feel like they wish they'd had more protection. So I appreciate your efforts on this, and I think the constructive comments that have been made in a very civil fashion tonight are appreciated, and I look forward to seeing the next draft. And I do think the shorter the better, because like you said, you can make a statement about an expectation in a positive way that implies the negativity, and a reasonable person can interpret that, interpret actions as falling outside of those expectations. So I think keeping it short, and as short as reasonably possible, would be ideal. So.
Understood.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for your feedback. It is appreciated.
Okay.
And just a reminder, it doesn't always have to be 2 readings. Things can
be 3 or 4.
Be 3 or 4 and take more time as needed, and the thoughtfulness that goes into it is really important. So there is no rush.
Okay, moving on to item H, annual agenda planning calendar, second reading. Donna?
So this follows your board policy 1008, and we actually started with this again back in June, just to kind of calendar out for everyone what the year would look like following our usual process. So here it is back for approval, and we've tried to put as many of the pieces to it that we have absolutely been able to confirm. There are always some things that need adjustment as we move through the calendar. So certainly things, even though you would adopt this with specifics in it, there are always things that can be adjusted. An example being last year we did some movement with one of the linkage sessions because we weren't ready at the same time. Just a reminder as well that our board policy 1250 discusses our student reps being at the first meeting at the month. And so when there are 2 meetings, they're at the first. If there's only 1 meeting that month, they're at that one, and that's when they will give their student report as well. And that will also be right prior to the superintendent's report, because it also states in the policy that we will dismiss them early as needed to make sure that they don't stay through the entire meeting. So that's just something to recognize, that they will be at some of the meetings as well. So are there any other concerns or comments regarding this last iteration of our upcoming calendar?
I had one comment. I couldn't decide if I was going to bring this up at board reports or now. In reading, as I was going through and preparing for today and reading, the approval, our meeting our study session at Riverview School District regarding the student representatives, and then approving our student representatives this year. And also based on the fact that we have not had a high turnout at our, I believe, 2 community linkage sessions this year, which again, as Director Drinkwater said, is support, obviously, for the work that we're doing. I was wondering if it was a time to start talking about whether or not we want to have a student linkage session. I think our student voice, it's going to be great coming from the student representatives, but I think the student representatives can also lead the charge and have students come and meet directly with us. So just throwing it out there. I haven't heard it brought up before, but just in reviewing this, I think it's a piece that is missing.
So just a reminder, particularly at the high school last year when we did our site visit at the high school, the principal put together a very comprehensive group of students that I think were very honest and gave the board some great feedback at that time. So, of course, we don't visit the high school every year, but that is certainly something that we can adjust and perhaps, do the same at the middle school also when we do that visit to them, which isn't this year, but would be in the next year. So that's always an option. But certainly I'm open to discussions as to what a student roundtable might look like. I would absolutely suggest that it occurred during when school is in session.
I appreciate that input and appreciate the superintendent's kind of solution to that. I think that would be neat, maybe even at an elementary school level. The principals could choose a diverse group of students. It'd be in a quiet environment, not necessarily televised, which might be good for kids, and in a respectful type of thing. That'd be kind of fun.
So just in addition, added this year as a superintendent student advisory, and the board representatives on that student advisory are the 2 student board reps. So we actually had some conversation about how they will help and support that group that will include representatives from each of the elementary schools, as well as the middle school and other reps from the high school. And they will be working with Assistant Superintendent Rundle and myself in hopefully having some frank conversations about their aspirations and hopes for their schools. And when we have those meetings, which we're looking at quarterly throughout the year, we'll see how well that schedule works depending on their schedules. That will absolutely then become part of the student rep report back to the board as well as to what was the conversation, what was the input from the students. I certainly see a future as we grow our student rep program, so to speak. Is there a way to include more student voice, either at the board level with a linkage session? I'm not sure if we can put it in right now or if it's something we want to look at and see how well we can make adjustments for future.
Yeah, I think it's a great suggestion, and I look forward to getting student input on the student linkage idea. One other comment I wanted to make about the calendar was I suggested an edit of changing our language from board retreat to board study session, and sometimes we've been calling them specifically study sessions, but our traditional January daytime and end of June daytime meetings have been called retreats, and I think study session is a more descriptive and helpful term. So we put that in. If there are no objections to that, that's what we will call them going forward.
There is one other change. The 6-year facilities plan is reflected in June as we try to meet timelines for that. So that is a bit of a push, but Ty assures me that staff will be ready for that in June. So we'll separate out those two documents. The budget will still be in August, but the capital facilities plan will be scheduled for by the end of June.
Okay. If there are no other comments or edits, we could go ahead and approve this tonight.
I move we approve Board Policy 1008P, the annual agenda planning calendar.
I'll second it.
Great. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to full governance process monitoring and language review. We now have the same policy, 1008, annual agenda planning language review. So this is the actual policy that helps us develop that agenda. And so are there any comments or questions about the language? Any edits proposed? And last meeting 2 weeks ago, we found ourselves in compliance with this policy. So this is the opportunity to edit. Hearing none? Okay. So we'll move forward from that to the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda passes 4-0. And now we have superintendent announcements. Do you have anything to add here?
Nothing to add, just a reminder of new teacher orientation on Monday. It's great. If you can be there, we'd love to introduce you to our 57 new staff members from a variety of locations. Also next week, as staff ramps up, don't forget Thursday is the barbecue that occurs at, we need to be ready at about, I think 11 we said, Fred? I think 11 o'clock in the morning for serving staff that will be attending the Tech Day that day. So hope to see you all there as well as we prepare for that. And you're also welcome if you would like to observe any of the safety training. We'll be using Zoom to do the district-wide portion of that. Art Munoz and myself will Zoom in to each of the schools to do kind of the preliminary district-wide discussion of safety and emergency preparedness, and then each site will individualize it to their site as to what specific things they need to review within their safety plan. So it starts next week, ramps up with lots of activity as we prep for the students' return.
Thank you, Donna. And so moving on to board announcements, inquiries, and reports. Brian, are you ready? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Legislative rep update. It's still Brian, though.
It's still me. I made a few notes. They're continuing to update the handbook for Legislative Assembly. There are still pieces that aren't quite there yet. But going through the handbook, it's good to take a couple minutes to look at how they've broken out all of our standing proposals, legislative proposals, new legislative proposals. And there's a pretty hefty load. I think it counted 104 legislative positions for 2018. It'd be great if we could print the full packet for everyone, but not until after August 31st, because they're still adjusting language and all that. But this is one of those things I would like to physically have in my hand, as opposed to trying to find my spot in the computer and use sticky notes and old school. So coming up soon, they're going to have more information on the school safety levy and local effort assistant policies and high school graduation requirements. So those have not been updated yet. Those are some new things. Yeah.
What do you mean school safety levy? What does that mean?
No, it's school safety, comma, levy and local effort assistant policies, comma, High school graduation rates, yeah. Are some of the topics that they're going to expand on in the handbook. They're just not there yet, or on the website. There's 16 new proposals that will be hitting the books, and among them is number 17, the Comprehensive School Safety proposal that was issued by Issaquah, Bellevue, Snoqualmie, and Mercer Island. So we are published with that. Exciting. It's about 54 pages, but all the recommendations are in. Recommend, do pass, recommend, do not pass, all of that. And between, it'd be great if at the next meeting, if everyone has a chance to look through it on the website, and I can give you directions of how to get there again. If you go to the WASDA website, click on Events, click on Legislative Assembly, a little pop-up will show up that says Handbook. Click into that, and it'll give you all the different segments and sections explaining how to read through the handbook. And if we have to figure out how between now and Assembly, how we're going to choose our 15 top priorities out of the 104 plus positions in there. Yeah.
May I ask another question?
Yes.
When is
Use the
Assembly?
microphone.
When is Assembly?
September 21st and
Oh,
22nd
perfect.
in
So-
Spokane.
So this will work really well in terms of figuring out our priorities and being able to convey that to the city, because the city's going to want to have that at a certain point. So
Right.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah. And pointing these things out too, I don't know if there's a way that we could share through the district website some of this information so that we have an opportunity for our stakeholders in the community to share their input about priorities and what's important to them. I think it would be great to hear from student voice and all our different stakeholders. And then I think that covers it for now. It's still a work in progress. Oh, I was going to say, so the first workshop that was done on the web is available to view now, and anyone can do that to get kind of your grounding of an orientation. The two of you are more familiar with Legislative Assembly than the two of us, but it'll give that. And then September 7th, you can sign up for another web program where they're going to delve in deeper to how all the handbook is broken down and the different positions and what a standing legislative position is and outgoing and all of that. So
Maybe have some of those documents put on the agenda on board docs next time, because it could be a nice thing for our students to review as well and be aware of, and perhaps even weigh in on if they're so inclined.
After it's streamlined.
after it's streamlined,
Right.
and they have their final version August 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds
So
good.
Brian, if you can work with us to make sure that we're getting the streamlined version attached here, that would be great.
Right. I'll do what I can. Yes.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brian. And moving on to any other reports, non-legislative?
This mic needs to be repaired. No. No, I've had my hands full really this week going through the packet and just trying to keep on top of what's happening with Legislative Assembly. So it's work that I love to do, but it's kind of all-consuming at this point. So I'm enjoying the last few bits of summer with the family, and I'm excited to meet some of our new staff members coming in and the barbecue and to get things rolling. So.
Thank you for your work on that. Deborah?
That's really what I wanted to say. I look forward to hearing about a successful and completion-oriented bargaining session on Saturday. I think that will be great for our entire community to have that resolved, and I'm very confident that it will be, and appreciate all of the hard work that everyone has put into. And having attended the middle school back-to-school day yesterday, it's just an exciting time of year to watch the kids get ready to go back to school and hearing our teachers starting to be in their classrooms and setting things up. So just look forward to a beginning of a great new school year, and appreciate everyone's hard work in making it as positive experience as possible for our students.
Ralph?
Nothing here.
Okay. I wanted to say that I would be looking forward to those upcoming staff events. I would love to be there, but I'm going to be on vacation for the next 10 days. It's just not missing any of our meetings, but missing those events. And I do wish everyone an awesome start to the school year, and hope that all the enthusiasm of the bluer skies that we hopefully will have will translate into fun in the classroom as well. I also just wanted to ask you, Donna, about the scheduling of our next study sessions for strategic planning, if that was something that you had.
So you talked about that at your last study session about when might future sessions occur, how might they occur. There was some conversation regarding the length of them or the space in between them, that it was hard sometimes with our last study sessions. We had 2, sometimes 3 months between them, and so then it was hard to continue the conversation in the most productive manner. So one suggestion was, do we add some time at the beginning or end of a meeting? And I know there was some reluctance for the end of the meeting, because by this time of the evening, everyone's a little worn out. But perhaps a potential would be to start at a 4:30 start. So give an hour and some time. We could certainly arrange to have some sandwiches or something in between, and then still have our 6 o'clock start, but do some work in study sessions, perhaps at a 4:30, if that was workable. More than likely, we'll be able then, of course, to use this space as well, because we're already scheduled in here, and look at perhaps a monthly option for doing an early start to tag on some study sessions prior to our regular scheduled meetings. Be very similar to what Riverview did when we visited them. That study session was right before they went into their regularly scheduled meetings. So that would be one proposal to look at, and potentially scheduling one in September and one in October. Our September meetings are September 13th and the 27th, and our October meetings are the 11th and the 25th. However, the 11th does have an earlier start because there are fundamentals there, so that might not be as workable. So those would be my suggestions as to some next potential study sessions.
Any comments, feedback on that idea?
I'm pretty flexible, so that it can work for me.
I think the study session before our meetings, I think it makes the most sense, whether it's monthly or every 6 weeks or something, just as long as it's not too often at 4:30.
Works for me. Thank you.
And that works for me as well. Thank you. So look forward to hearing about when we can schedule the next one. Okay. Anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.